Welcome to News Beacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Good evening. Tonight, we bring you a developing story that's sending shockwaves through the global economy and threatening to reshape the relationship between two of North America's closest allies. Tensions have reached a boiling point on the northern border, and the consequences could be felt in households and businesses across both countries for years to come. Breaking news tonight: President Trump has lashed out after Canada announced a major new aluminum deal, effectively cutting the US out of a lucrative market, and instead turning to the European Union and Asian partners. The announcement came as a shock to many in Washington, who had expected ongoing negotiations to ease tensions, not escalate them. This move, which Canadian officials say was intended to de-escalate a simmering trade war, has instead ignited a full-blown crisis for American industries that rely heavily on Canadian resources. Aluminum, a critical component in everything from cars to airplanes to soda cans, is now at the center of a fierce economic battle. Factories across the Midwest and South are bracing for supply shortages, and workers are left wondering what the future holds. Canada's dramatic pivot signals a fundamental shift in North American supply chains. With the EU and Asian nations stepping in to fill the gap left by the US, the balance of power in global trade is rapidly changing. After months of escalating tariffs and retaliatory measures, the world is watching to see how these new alliances will reshape the flow of goods and capital across continents. The stakes are enormous, not just for the price of aluminum, but for the very future of US-Canada economic integration. Stock markets have already reacted with volatility, and currency values are fluctuating as investors try to make sense of the new reality. Business leaders on both sides of the border are scrambling to adapt, while economists warn that the ripple effects could extend far beyond the metals industry, impacting everything from construction to consumer goods. Prime Minister Mark Carney's bold gamble to protect Canadian industries has backfired in Washington, where President Trump has vowed swift and severe retaliation. The White House is reportedly considering a new round of tariffs and other punitive measures, raising fears of a prolonged trade war that could drag down both economies. Lawmakers in Ottawa and Washington are trading barbs, and diplomatic channels are working overtime to prevent further escalation. Tonight we break down how this trade war exploded seemingly overnight, and what it means for millions of jobs on both sides of the border. From factory floors to boardrooms, from small towns to major cities, the impact of this conflict will be felt far and wide. Stay with us as we investigate the origins of this crisis, the key players involved, and the uncertain road ahead for North American trade. To understand the uproar, look at Canada's latest move. Prime Minister Carney announced Canada will drop most retaliatory tariffs on US goods, aiming to ease tensions and lower costs for Canadians. But crucially, Canada is keeping steep tariffs on US steel, aluminum, and autos, its strategic sectors. This partial rollback followed a tense call with President Trump, where Carney believed he was offering a good faith gesture. Instead, Washington saw defiance, not compromise. Canada's strategy: relieve pressure on consumers, but keep leverage in negotiations and protect key jobs. The US response: more anger and threats of escalation. The trade war is far from over. The White House's reaction has shifted from measured to combative. While Canada rolled back some tariffs, the US maintains heavy duties on Canadian steel, aluminum, and more. President Trump is now threatening even higher tariffs, up to 35%, citing not just trade, but national security. The administration links the dispute to the fentanyl crisis, blaming Canada for rising opioid flows across the border. US border agents have seized record amounts of fentanyl this year, fueling calls for tougher action. Critics argue this conflates trade and law enforcement, punishing businesses for a complex criminal issue. By framing tariffs as a security measure, the White House makes compromise politically risky. The trade fight is now entangled with public health and border security. The path to resolution just got even harder. On the ground, the trade war's toll is devastating, especially in Ontario, Canada's manufacturing hub. US tariffs have triggered chaos in cross-border supply chains, leading to 38,000 lost jobs in just 3 months. Factories are idling, shifts are cut, and families face mounting uncertainty. Communities like Windsor and Hamilton, built on steel and autos, are reeling. Prime Minister Carney's decision to keep tariffs on U.S. steel and autos is a direct response to this pain. But with the U.S. threatening even higher tariffs, the pressure is relentless. The human cost is mounting, with thousands caught in the crossfire. For many, this is no longer a political fight, it's about survival. As tensions rise and U.S.-Canada relations sour, Europe and Asia are moving fast to fill the gap. While Washington and Ottawa exchange heated words and tariffs, leaders across the Atlantic and Pacific are seizing a rare opportunity to reshape the global trade landscape. The world is watching as new alliances form, and the balance of economic power begins to shift. The European Union and major Asian economies have just secured a massive new aluminum deal with Canada, offering Canadian producers a crucial lifeline at a time of uncertainty. This agreement is more than just a business transaction, it's a strategic move that strengthens ties between Canada and its new partners, while also sending a clear message to the US about the risks of protectionism. For decades, Canada relied heavily on the US market for its aluminum exports. Now, faced with tariffs and trade barriers, Canada is pivoting, diversifying its customer base and reducing its vulnerability to US policy shifts. Canadian workers and businesses are adapting quickly, redirecting shipments to Europe and Asia, and forging new relationships that could last for generations. For the United States, this is a significant blow. American manufacturers who have long depended on a steady supply of Canadian aluminum may soon face higher prices and even shortages as more of Canada's output is sent overseas. The ripple effects could be felt across industries from car makers to construction as supply chains are forced to adjust. Ironically, the very tariffs meant to protect U.S. industry could end up hurting it instead. By pushing Canada to seek new partners, these policies may undermine the competitiveness of American businesses, leaving them scrambling for alternatives and facing increased costs. The new EU-Asia-Canada Pact is more than just a trade agreement, it's a signal of a global shift. Countries targeted by U.S. tariffs are building new alliances, creating alternative trade networks that bypass Washington's influence and reshape the rules of international commerce. The world isn't waiting for Washington to resolve its disputes, instead nations are moving forward, forging new partnerships and setting the stage for a future where the U.S. may no longer be at the center of global trade. The U.S. now risks isolation as new trade blocs form and old alliances are redefined. As Europe, Asia, and Canada draw closer together, America's absence from these deals could have lasting consequences for its economic influence. This is more than a single deal, it's a warning of long-term consequences. If the U.S. continues down this path, it could find itself sidelined in the very markets it once dominated, with ripple effects that reach far beyond aluminum. The global trade landscape is changing fast, and those who adapt quickly will shape the future. For now, Europe and Asia are seizing the moment, while the U.S. risks being left behind. The rhetoric is as heated as the tariffs. President Trump blasted Canada's New Deal as a betrayal, vowing even higher tariffs and accusing Carney of weakness. Carney, in contrast, defended his actions as protecting Canadian sovereignty and workers, insisting Canada won't be bullied. Trump's aggressive, winner-take-all approach is colliding with Carney's measured, diplomatic style. This clash of personalities and strategies is fueling the crisis. Trump's tactics risk alienating allies, while Carney's restraint is under fire at home. The result, a standoff with no easy off-ramp. The war of words is making real compromise even harder. At home, Carney faces fierce criticism from conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre calls the tariff rollback a capitulation, arguing it weakens Canada's position and rewards U.S. aggression. He claims Carney surrendered leverage and failed to secure any real concessions. Carney counters that his approach is pragmatic, easing pressure on Canadians while keeping key industries protected. The opposition's attacks resonate with those who feel Canada is being pushed around. This domestic battle limits Carney's flexibility and raises the stakes. The political divide at home mirrors the international standoff. Every move is scrutinized, making compromise even more elusive. All of this is happening as a critical USMCA review looms. The trade pact's upcoming joint review, demanded by the Trump administration, was meant as a checkpoint. Now, it's a potential flashpoint. The use of national security tariffs has exposed loopholes and raised doubts about the agreement's future. The review gives any country the chance to withdraw if disputes aren't resolved. Trump has signaled he'll use this as leverage, threatening to unravel the entire North American trade bloc. Businesses face profound uncertainty as the future of free trade hangs in the balance. What was meant to ensure stability now threatens to spark a full-blown crisis. The clock is ticking on North America's economic partnership. So where does this leave us? As the dust settles on a series of heated negotiations and public statements, both the United States and Canada find themselves at a crossroads. The choices made in the coming months will not only define the future of their own economies, but could also send ripples across the entire global trading system. US-Canada relations are in uncharted waters, with the threat of escalating tariffs and a deeper economic crisis looming. The border, once a symbol of cooperation and prosperity, now stands as a potential flashpoint for economic uncertainty. Every truck that crosses, every shipment delayed, is a reminder of how fragile this partnership has become. For Trump, it's a test of his America First agenda, a chance to prove to his supporters that he can extract better deals and protect American jobs, even if it means risking long-standing alliances. The stakes are high, and the political rhetoric is only getting louder. For Carney and Canadian leaders, it's a fight to defend Canada's interests and diversify trade. They're under pressure to show that Canada can stand on its own, forging new partnerships and reducing its reliance on the US market. The challenge is immense, but so is the determination to adapt and thrive. The outcome could reshape global trade, setting precedents for how countries respond to protectionism and shifting alliances. If the US and Canada can't find common ground, other nations may follow suit, redrawing the map of international commerce. As Canada's pivot to Europe and Asia shows, allies are learning to adapt to US pressure by seeking new markets and building alternative trade networks. These moves are not just about survival. They're about shaping a new era of global cooperation, one that may not always include the United States at its center. If this trend continues, the world could see new, competing trade blocs and a less predictable global economy. Investors, businesses, and workers everywhere are watching for signs of stability or further disruption. The stakes are not just political but deeply personal for millions whose livelihoods depend on open markets. A diplomatic solution is possible, but it will require compromise, creativity, and a willingness to rebuild trust that has been eroded by months of tension. Behind closed doors, negotiators are working tirelessly to find common ground, knowing that the world is watching their every move. But trust is in short supply. Years of political posturing and economic brinkmanship have left scars that won't heal overnight. Each side is wary of giving too much, fearing backlash at home and further instability abroad. With the USMCA review approaching and rhetoric intensifying, the risk of miscalculation is high. A single misstep could trigger a chain reaction, affecting not just North America but economies around the world. Lawmakers and business leaders alike are bracing for what comes next. The world is watching to see if these neighbors can pull back from the brink. Every headline, every policy announcement is scrutinized for clues about the future of North American trade and the global order. The economic future of millions hangs in the balance. From factory floors to family dinner tables, the decisions made in Ottawa and Washington will shape lives for years to come. The next chapter in North American trade is unwritten, and its outcome will be felt around the world.